Welcome back to Yanks Abroad. Today is a special one. We are celebrating, or mourning, I guess, if you're a Liverpool fan, Klopp's departure of Liverpool at the end of the season. So today, Will and I are going head-to-head, drafting our all-time teams of players who played under Klopp between Dortmund and Liverpool, unless you have someone that goes further back, which we'll get to. But subscribe if you've enjoyed the pod thus far, or think you're going to enjoy in the future, and let's get right into it.
For sure.
First pick, you want to rock it out?
Yeah, let's go.
All right.
Rock, paper, scissors, says.
Oh, you do says. Tragic.
take it. I was going scissors, you went rock.
Okay.
So
All right. First pick, the greatest player to ever play for Jurgen Klopp at right wing. I'm going Mohamed Salah.
That's an easy first pick.
Easy. That's easy, right?
Easy.
Okay. I didn't want to overthink it with Lewandowski and his days at Dortmund. So my right wing position is filled at Mohamed Salah.
Okay. I am going to go with, as everybody knows, my favorite, Trent Alexander-Arnold at right back. I just think he can make any team tick. That's a no-brainer to me. Klopp is the man who made TAA who he is today. Trent Alexander-Arnold at right back.
You going two, or are we going back and forth?
I think we got to snake it.
All right, yeah. Go.
And then I'm going to pair that with Robert Lewandowski at striker. Unbelievable at Dortmund. Again, another player like under Klopp exploded, became the Lewandowski that we've all loved to watch for the past decade.
Yeah.
So that's a no-brainer. I got Lewandowski up top. I got Trent Alexander-Arnold feeding him.
All right, that's a good duo. With Mohamed Salah up top, I think my strategy now is, I think the biggest disparity, maybe other than right back, is at the goalkeeper position.
I almost went goalkeeper.
Like you have Weidenfeller or Loris Karius or any of those other
or
Liverpool.
Simon Mignolet's
Right.
couple of games.
So I'm going to take Alisson at goalkeeper.
Sure.
And then I'm going to take Virgil van Dijk at center back. Mats Hummels is obviously a really, really good center back choice and was great on those Dortmund teams. But I think Van Dijk, especially in that Champions League winning side and how good Liverpool has been respected as one of, if not the greatest center back in the world at times. So grabbing that core of defense between VVD and Alisson, I feel like is a good structure for the team.
For sure. And I think like with this draft, obviously like now I don't need to take a goalie for a while. I don't need to take a right winger for a while. But I do need to take a center back right now, because if you take Mats Hummels, I'm stuck with some, not garbage, but Mats Hummels, probably his best years aside from maybe one or two at Bayern were under Klopp at Dortmund.
Definitely.
So I'm going to go Mats Hummels as one of my center backs. And then it's a little bit of a tough decision because there's two really good left wing options. So I may wait on left wing, go and look into the center of the park. But a lot of great midfielders to play under Klopp, and a lot with very similar identities, because that's how great managers operate.
Right.
If we're going peak and like guys who really were incredible under Klopp, and this may be a hot take, I'm going Nuri Sahin in central midfield. He was incredible for Dortmund. He was a huge, huge prospect. I feel like injuries really kind of slowed his career down long term. But Nuri Sahin, throw him in the middle of the park. He can play as that lone six. He can play as one of the eights. That's my pick.
Sahin is a good pick. The only reason I didn't go there, and he was amazing, is for me, I was looking at differential in terms of, that's why I went for Alisson. And I feel like the other center midfielders that are there, the differential between Sahin and the rest you could get isn't as wide of a gap. And I'm going to take Philippe Coutinho.
Interesting.
I think
Where are you playing him?
I'm playing him at the 10.
Okay.
But depending on who else I get, my formation may...
You may end up putting him out of left wing.
Potentially.
Okay.
So I'm going to take Coutinho. I think in his prime, which were some of Klopp's first couple years at Liverpool, he was similar to Hazard, the way they were able to like drift with the ball. And then I just remember so many of those curling finishes that he had cutting in from the left side into the right side of the net. And he was a really special player. It's a shame that he never took that next step to become like the elite of the elite. But I think Coutinho, similar to what you're saying, in his prime for those couple seasons at Liverpool, was really good. And then a tough one here, because I think there were discussions when that front three in that Liverpool Champions League winning team and title contending teams, there was a discussion between who's better, Mane or Salah. So I'm going to go Sadio Mane and put him at left wing.
Sure.
Because longevity-wise, he was amazing, but also just prime where he was potentially the more clinical finisher, maybe for a season or two than Salah. He was absolutely unreal. So I'm going Sadio Mane.
Okay. Again, that leaves me with some easy decisions.
Yeah. Well,
not easy decisions.
There's a couple.
But you've filled attacking midfield, left wing and right wing.
Yes.
Marco Reus is not on the table for you anymore.
Correct.
So I'm going to wait and get Marco Reus a little bit later in the draft. I'm going to go where I think the biggest discrepancy is now. And I actually don't think it's that big. I think Marcel Schmelzer was incredible for a while, but I'm going to get Andy Robertson. Andy Robertson for 4 years was the best left back in the world.
Yes.
Like, he was the biggest threat.
Yeah.
Him and Alexander-Arnold were both having double-digit assists at once, and now I've got both of them in my team.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go Andy Robertson at left back, and then I'm going to fill another center midfield spot. And it's actually tough because you haven't really taken any of the central midfielders left. Part of me wants to take Gundogan with his time at Dortmund, but I actually think his best years in his career were not at Dortmund. They were at City. He was great at Dortmund. But
yeah, that would be a little bit of recency bias, I think, to include Gundogan because of how good he was with City.
So I'm going to go and grab Mario Götze and throw him in at the 10.
Okay.
I'm going to play him in midfield. Honestly, vibes and nostalgia player. His peaks were incredible. His valleys were... He was not someone on the pitch you necessarily wanted out there. He had a lot of injury issues.
Yeah.
But he was the golden boy. And during his time under Klopp, he was the golden boy. So I'm going to go Götze and Robertson in this round.
I like that. Are you playing him at the 10?
I'm playing him at the 10.
Okay, because there's a few players that you could play out wide or through the middle.
Götze also played as like a false 9 at times in his career. You could have theoretically thrown him up there as striker.
Yeah. So that leaves me with, I think I'm going to fill my midfield now because my wingbacks are obviously settled, and I don't think, unless you had another center back option, I don't think the differential between like a Subotic or a Matip is like big enough to want to go there. So I am going to go with Fabinho and place him at the 6. And then this is really, really tough because I listed 4 center midfield options, and now I have to choose one out of all 4 between Gundogan, Hendo, Thiago, and Wijnaldum. And this may be... I don't know if this is a hot take.
Can you really take Thiago? He hasn't done shit under Klopp.
I know, but he's just...
Like, on his day, obviously, he still has it. And he's had some fantastic moments for Liverpool.
I wanted to take Thiago, but for that... I think...
I didn't even put him on my list.
Prime of that player... But this is similar to the Gundogan.
Right.
Prime of that player, I think he's the best out of all those options.
Not even close.
But similar to you made a vibes pick, I'm going to make like a camaraderie pick and leadership pick, and I'm going to take Hendo.
I wanted to take Hendo as my first midfielder.
The importance of him in, obviously, Liverpool as their entire history, pretty much, with Klopp, was unreal. And just engine-wise and at his peak, I think people, because he's like did the dirty work sometimes, kind of slept on how maybe technically gifted he was and like spraying of passes and different things. And I think he was really good at that. So I think he's perfect to play. And now my midfield is Fabinho, Hendo, and Coutinho, which I'm a big fan of.
Yeah, for sure. You've got an all Liverpool midfield.
I think I haven't actually picked a Dortmund player.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. All right, my pick?
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to finish my midfield with Wijnaldum. I think the midfield that I've selected with Sahin and Götze is lacking a little bit of athleticism. He's lacking that real engine, that guy who is actually going to be the true box-to-box midfielder. And that's what Wijnaldum did best. And then, honestly, he did it at such a good rate and worked so hard that his legs have gone since he's left Liverpool. And
if Hendo was there, would you have picked Gini or Hendo?
I don't know. I wanted to take Hendo really early on. I was not a Henderson fan, even when he was at his best. But just looking back on the years that he played under Klopp, he truly was incredible.
Yeah.
And he didn't really get his flowers because he's not really the kind of guy you want to root for. I feel like if you're not a Liverpool fan, he's just like a fucking scumbag in ways. But he's great. But I'm happy to take Wijnaldum. And then let's see, what do I have left? I need a center back, I need a goalie, and I need a left winger. Center back's really the only one left where you also need a player, but I actually don't know what I want to do here. I think to pair with Mats Hummels, I'll probably go out and get Joel Matip. I think the springiness of his legs, the ability to have a little bit more burst than either Subotic or Socrates. He's a more modern center back, and I think those defensive sides at Dortmund actually weren't all that good. Whereas at Liverpool in their best years, they were the best defense in the league. So I'm going to get Joel Matip and pair him with Mats Hummels.
Yeah. I think a lot of, and this is credit to Klopp, but I think, and we've talked about this briefly, is the reason that those Liverpool teams, other than the talent they had on the field, the reason they were so good in defense is because they imposed themselves so well in the press, and like you had to work so hard to keep them out that you almost didn't have energy to even attack, which then in turn makes your defense that much better.
There's a tweet I think about literally every single day. Chitty, he's an Arsenal fan, tweeted, "I just had to open my window because the press was so suffocating." Like that was prime Liverpool. Like you actually couldn't breathe watching your team play them because even when you had little spells of possession, like you were freaking out that any missed pass and they were on the break. I mean, he ran those midfielders into the ground for 3 years, but it made Liverpool win a title, win a Champions League, and I mean the best team probably did not win a league the year that they lost to City by a point.
Yeah, obviously. So like you had to work hard to even have possession past the midfield line and then have enough energy to go try and score a goal. So I think that played
prime Van Dijk and Alisson, who is the best goalkeeper in Premier League history.
Wow, that's an interesting.
I'm sure about that.
I haven't ever thought about it, so I'm not prepared to.
There's nobody who has paired distribution with shot stopping and he's also the best goalie in 1v1s in the world. Like he is he may be a top 3 goalie ever.
All right. We'll get into that later. I'm going to just fill my wing backs. For left back, I didn't have another option other than Schmelzer.
Yeah, it's either him or Simicas. I mean, I had Schmelzer written down, that's who I would have taken, but there really isn't a
And then right back, it was Piszczek or James Milner, maybe, if you wanted there. I'm going Piszczek. I think they were
I didn't think about Milner. That's an interesting option.
Yeah, I think they were a great duo. And when you talk about duos of that generation, I think they were up there. Never one of the best.
Was Piszczek, did he play a lot under Klopp, or he came in towards the end of Klopp's?
I think he was towards the end, but I think he was still playing at a high level. And they were never, obviously, at the Robertson Trent.
No.
But those are my wing backs, which leaves us, I think, with a pick each.
I have 2 and you have 1.
Okay.
I need to go out and get a goalkeeper, which will be Weidenfeller.
Yeah.
I think that's an easy selection as the second best goalie. I mean, what held that Dortmund team back for years was a lack of good goalkeeping. Weidenfeller was a true veteran. He worked hard, but was never one of the best in the world.
Average, yeah.
And then I get to finish my team with Marco Reus, which is beautiful. Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, never won anything under Klopp, but him and Lewandowski, I mean, I have vibes at the top of my team. Like,
so what's your front 3?
Reus. Oh, wait, I didn't take a right winger.
Yeah.
So we got a lot more picks left.
I think I only have 1. Oh, no, I have 2. Sorry.
Okay. So I am going to go Reus as my – I have one more pick after that. But Reus and Lewandowski, and my right winger will end up being Dortmund too. But the vibes of Reus and Lewandowski at the front, like that was like prime, like getting into like other soccer than Arsenal for me, like that era of Dortmund. Like
I think they own the cutest soccer video ever produced when they're looking at each other
when
he went to
Bayern.
Yeah.
I mean, I literally am seeing it in my head right now.
I've seen that like so much.
It's a great gift
and you play the correct soundtrack behind it. It really gets you in your feels. Yeah. So the final 2 picks for me to fill my team are a center back
and a striker.
So I'm gonna go Subotic.
Sure.
And then with a left wing, right wing of Salah and Mane, it makes no sense other than to grab Bobby. Did you have a different option to play that?
Well, I mean, like, I guess I would have considered potentially like a false 9 if I had to, but knowing the only one of us was getting Lua and one was getting. I mean, that was one of the best balanced front 3s in Premier League history.
So I looked up. I looked up the highest rated performers under Klopp ever in research of doing this. Coutinho actually finished first, and then Bobby was second in like average.
I mean, we were just talking about the press, but like having a striker like Firmino was what made that press tick more than anything. God, I mean, he was not only working hard, but he had an incredible ability to anticipate and help shape where the ball was going to be forced to, and then win the second duel. I mean, that's you don't see a lot of strikers with those.
And
abilities.
Then 2 wingers who almost double as number 9s, being able to clear out the
They're
space for them
forwards.
to make those diagonal runs for Mane and Salah just makes too much sense. So that's my team. And what do you have left?
I have a right wing. I'm going to get Blaszczykowski, FIFA legend.
Yeah, absolute legend.
He was great. I mean, he was great for what he did in that team. He didn't need to be a big goal scorer. No. They had Reus. They had Lewandowski. They had Kagawa at times. They had Götze. But, yeah, I mean, I got a full front 3 of Dortmund. You got a full front 3 of Liverpool. It's funny, like, I'm thinking to myself, my team's better, but obviously your Liverpool team, You ended up with mostly Liverpool. Won way more things. So yeah, I don't know. Tell us who you think won.
Comment down below whose team is better. And now we'll move into what's next for Klopp.
Yeah. I mean, the obvious answer and what everyone's talking about is he's going to take over the Germany side. They're going to go through the Euros now with Nagelsmann this summer, and then assuming they don't win, they maybe bring Klopp in.
What do you think the Germany benchmark is for how they finish in the Euros to where he earns himself a spot to coach them at the World Cup?
The first thing that came to my mind was semifinals, but I also think it's a matter of how they play. I think what we've seen from Germany in the last 3-4 years is not just a lack of results, but it's a lack of identity.
Yeah.
I mean, they have not found a system that's worked. They have not found a 11 that's worked. The Germany teams that were so good for a decade were very consistent in their performances. They were very consistent in who they were playing and who was in the side. And so I'd expect it to basically come down to, can they find consistency at the Euros? As we talked about in our Euros episode, they did not play anything but friendlies really for the last year. So this is going to be a big test for Nagelsmann. And honestly, it may not matter. It may be win or bust for him. And you know what? He'll go get a job coaching a club team. That's not going to be an issue for Nagelsmann. 100%. So I think it could be a win-win for Germany. But maybe...
I mean, I think Nagelsmann should be coaching at Bayern.
Yeah.
But
he could end up back
I
at
agree. I do agree that their problem stems from the lack of identity, but in a tournament structure, sometimes getting results is unfortunately more important than finding an identity that doesn't work. So I said similarly semifinals. I think if they make it to the semifinals, that he'll earn himself a spot. But as we spoke about, we don't anticipate that happening. So I had the same thing. I think it's a no-brainer that they crash out round of 16 probably, and then Klopp is brought in, gets an entire year to prepare, and then if you bring Klopp in, you all of a sudden, like, Germany is maybe a top 5 contender to win the World Cup in 2026.
It's a good time to bring Klopp in too, because like it's kind of a new generation of German players that we're about to kind of see get involved. So yeah, I mean, I think that Klopp makes Germany a top 3 international side,
and especially for a coach that just talked about being a little tired and the whole thing is just very grueling and everything, like an international job, I feel like just makes so much sense. Not that it's not a grueling job, but it's not
the week in and week out. Yeah, 100%. Is there any part of you that thinks it's not the Germany job at all? Like, where else could you see Jurgen Klopp going?
So it's interesting. Like, now that Xavi left, people have been saying that Klopp could go there, but the way Xavi's talking about all the pressure and things that go into being the Barca manager, it just doesn't feel like it adds up.
He seems tired.
Yeah.
Klopp.
And Xavi. Exactly. And with all the family things that he's been going through, I feel like Germany makes the most sense, whether it's the international team or the Bayern job. So what we've talked about is, I think it's kind of a revolving door of like Xabi Alonso, Tuchel, and Klopp maybe. Like if Xabi Alonso goes to Liverpool and Bayern fire Tuchel, Klopp could potentially take over the Bayern job, and
it could be just a fucking
cycle. That's what I was thinking.
You could even like, let's say Tuchel gets fired. Let's say Xabi Alonso takes the Liverpool job.
Right.
And Klopp wants to go back to Dortmund. And so then, well, like, if I'm Klopp, like, I'm honestly maybe more interested in going back to Dortmund than I am going to Bayern.
It's actually wild that you just said that for whatever reason, and we prepared an entire episode talking about Klopp at Dortmund. It didn't even cross my mind that Klopp could go back to Dortmund.
Yeah, like, what's his name? Terzi, that's how you pronounce his name?
Terzic or something.
Yeah, whatever it is. I mean, he's been fine for Dortmund, but, like, I think Dortmund would fire him in a second if Jurgen Klopp was like, I'm ready to come back and bring Dortmund a title.
Yeah.
It'd be fun.
It would be extremely fun. And a team that seems to be stuck in a place to where they probably will consistently get Champions League, won't ever compete for the Champions League, and won't ever compete for the Bundesliga is kind of where they're stuck at right now, or at least that's what it feels like. And Klopp seems like probably the only person that could come in and make that change.
Right, and also, like, if you're Dortmund, you're looking at Bayer Leverkusen, who all of a sudden are at top of the table challenging for the title. They've kind of leapfrogged you now.
Yeah.
Like, you blew it at the end of last year.
Right, that was probably their one chance.
That was exactly. Especially while Bayern are kind of like, they're not going through a rebuild, but for Bayern's sake, we talked about this last week. Like, or 2 weeks ago, like, it's not the Bayern we're used to seeing where it's domination.
They don't dominate. They're winning games by, like, you used to just not have to watch the games. You check the scoreline and it's like 5-0. Yeah. Ribery got a couple. Robin got, like it was just easy. You didn't even have to watch. Now they're scraping out 2-1 results like it's nothing. So hand to heart, you would say Germany?
I mean, I think the betting favorite's got to be like minus 200 Germany. Yeah. But, I mean, and also, did you read the Athletic article about him going to the U.S. men's national team?
I actually didn't. I don't want to do that.
Don't get your hopes up.
Yeah.
It's like any time, like when Wenger left Arsenal, they wrote articles about him. He's not taking over U.S. men's national team.
That would be amazing.
Yeah, that would be awesome. And then also, Mourinho's somewhere around there. But yeah.
All right, so who's filling the Liverpool job?
The obvious answer is De Zerbi. But I was talking about, was it you I was talking about this with the other day, where it's like, Brighton has too many results where it's like, you've just lost 4-0 at home to Wolves. Yeah. Like, you can't step into this. This isn't the job that Klopp took at Liverpool, where Liverpool haven't been good for a while. Yeah. You're taking a job at Liverpool where Liverpool fans are expecting to continue to compete for titles and Champions Leagues every week.
My only drawback to that is I think people's thesis is you see the potential that a De Zerbi tactic has, and that maybe the players he has can't fully input that day in, day out. And they're saying if you put De Zerbi's thoughts into this Liverpool team, it could be a more consistent cog.
We all had the same thought with Graham Potter.
Right.
And I want to say, I still very much believe Graham Potter's a great manager.
Where is he coaching right now?
Nowhere.
Really? Okay. Yeah.
I was worried. I mean, I think Andrew's going to do great for you guys, and I think he's the perfect manager. But I was worried you were going to go and take a risk on Potter because Potter,
he was talked about.
Yeah, I think De Zerbi is similar to Potter in that you need to be willing to actually go through the rebuild.
Yeah.
And Chelsea is not a rebuild club.
No.
And so Potter never really got the opportunity to actually implant a identity onto the squad. Yeah. Like, I feel like Arteta won that FA Cup, right, when he came in with pretty much no real identity. Yeah. He kind of sat back and hit on the counter and played tactically arranged a couple of matches well enough to win in a year where there were no fans, and we saw in all sports it was a little bit odd.
Yeah.
But then he immediately went about instilling identity, and we struggled horrifically for 2 years. I mean, there were great matches, there were great moments, but overall, there was no consistency. If Liverpool's willing to do that with a new manager, De Zerbi, I think, is no-brainer. He has the ability to be the next Arteta, the next Xabi Alonso, the next Pep. But I don't know that that's how Liverpool fans are going to see things. And so for that reason, I don't know if that's the right hire, because you kind of either need to get this hire right immediately and go with this squad, or you are going to have to enter a rebuild. Like Van Dijk's already spoken about leaving. I think when Klopp leaves, does Salah take the money and go play in Saudi? Maybe. He's talked about it.
And, I mean, he's getting up there in age.
Yeah, 100%.
He just picked up another injury.
He might be one of those guys who wants to leave on his peak. He is still one of the best players in the league, if not the best. He may be one of those guys who wants to be like, I don't want to be next year, have 8 goals and 6 assists.
But as, like, a competitor, I mean, we only played high school sports, but, like, even thinking about that, if you're Salah and it's like, I'm still going to win the Golden Boot potentially this year, like, would the drop-off be all the way down to an 8-goal, 6-assist season?
We've seen it.
Yeah.
We saw it with Rooney, we saw it with Vardy. Like, we've seen it in the Premier League. The Premier League is
Vardy's a different story, but yes.
I don't know. Vardy is one of the best goal scorers in Premier League.
It was a little bit of lightning in the bottle.
Incorrect. Vardy is one of the best goal scorers in Premier League history.
Another debate that we can't get into right now.
Any other names you had for Liverpool other than De Zerbi and Xabi Alonso that you want to talk about?
No, I think it comes down to if Bayern somehow make a Champions League final, come back and win Bundesliga, they're forced to keep Tuchel.
Yeah.
And maybe Xabi. I think we've discussed
Xabi Alonso
that.
played at Liverpool.
No, I know.
You mean he played at Bayern too, obviously.
Yeah, I think Xabi Alonso, in his head, it's 1A Bayern and 1B Liverpool. But, I mean, I obviously don't know him, and I could be entirely wrong. But if Bayern somehow put it together, which we don't anticipate happening, and they keep Tuchel, I think we both agree that Xabi Alonso, no matter what he's saying right now about how much he loves Leverkusen, he's not staying.
Unless there's a collapse at the end of this year. Like, I don't mean like a collapse like, they end up losing the league because Bayern go on a run. I mean like a true collapse. Like, I don't see him leaving.
You can't.
I mean, I don't see him
as great as Leverkusen is, you can't leave a Bayern and Liverpool job on the table.
No.
Like, those don't come about all the time.
And he's not going to take the Barca job because he's a Real Madrid guy.
Yeah, he's not. Yeah.
I had a couple other names. I think number one, like Liverpool fans would agree with this. You don't want Stevie G by any means. No. He's not a good manager.
Yeah.
Obviously, that name's going to be thrown around.
Ange has been floated around. He's the third. He's betting odds third favorite because
really,
he's a childhood Liverpool fan.
I knew that,
and
I don't think there's a chance for many reasons.
I think he's. I mean,
he has not. Proven
maybe this is me
yet.
talking. Oh, I don't think that's what it is. I think he's proved like he's won everywhere he's went, and the things he's been able.
Won in Australia and at Celtic.
Yeah, I mean, winning is winning.
Okay.
He's only done what he can with opportunities at hand. You know.
It's not going to be Ange.
I just think this may be biased and me talking myself into it, but it seems like he's relishing the opportunity of taking something at Tottenham and he's really building it as his own. Like the clear out has been like this is not even just in a year. This is not the same Tottenham team. Like almost none of these players played for the Mourinho teams and the Conte teams, and definitely not the
completely opposite identity. It had to be done.
Like. He essentially started a new Tottenham when Kane left and he came in. Like that was the turning of not even a page, but a chapter, a book. It was a start of a new book.
Impressive you've turned this Liverpool conversation into a Tottenham conversation.
Well, I mean, and just their betting favorite.
Who's 1 and 2? Xabi Alonso's 1.
Yeah.
And who's 2? De Zerbi.
Yeah, De Zerbi. Yeah.
So I had 2 other names.
De Zerbi's 1.
And Xabi Alonso's 2. So I had 2 other names that I thought could be interesting. One is Thomas Frank, who I think is one of the most underrated managers in the entire world. He's done a supreme job at Brentford. Imagine the budget of Sean Dyche, but doing it not just with fucking terrorist football. And Brentford go out and actually try and win games. Yeah. I think it's incredibly impressive. I think more likely Thomas Frank's end up being like the Danish national team manager eventually. I think he'll stay at Brentford for a little longer. But I think it's an interesting name. It might get floated around. And then one other guy who I've kind of thought about for a lot of different jobs, so I think is going to leave the Portuguese league soon, is Ruben Amorim, who is the Sporting manager. They play an incredible attacking style of football. Okay. Every striker who has gone in there in the last few years has scored goals in the plentiful. Victor Gyökeres, who came from Coventry City last year, has gone in there and been incredible for them. I just think he's a name that's going to get thrown around. I don't think he's likely.
Yeah.
But these things, you know how these things go. If Klopp ends up taking the Bayern job, Xabi Alonso ends up staying, Nagelsmann ends up staying, then the short list becomes a little bit stranger, right. And these are the names that might.
Yeah, I just think so Liverpool, we obviously don't know, but the entire season will be in a prime Premier League fight.
Yes.
To win, and then you have Klopp leaving, and he kind of started a new regime with all the signings that he brought in, and a team clearly ready to compete and continuing to be ready to compete. That with a brand name as big as Liverpool, I just can't anticipate seeing them bringing in someone who doesn't.
I agree.
Who doesn't have that brand name with the rest of the club. So that's why I think it's going to be one of the big 3 candidates that we spoke about.
It's not going to be Ange, but yes.
No, I don't think it's going to be Ange. I think he's building something for real.
He's building a team that should hopefully qualify for Champions League every year, and that's all Tottenham can ask for.
I don't think it's hopefully. I think we're pretty clear-cut top 4 favorites at this point. But
yeah, I mean, your top 4 favorites in a year where 2 of the top big 6 are in mid-table.
How big are they then?
I guess that's a fair question.
But last thing on managers before we get to the final of the coaching carousel that's going on right now. I think similarly to Poch of what you were talking about where you need to, the way Arteta came in and it wasn't working right away and you need to give them time. I think Chelsea fans with the amount of money they spend and just Chelsea being the club that they are struggling to buy into a rebuild. But I think if you give Poch the time, and we already touched on the Chelsea-Liverpool game last week, but if you actually watch the highlights or the game itself and don't just pay attention to the scoreline, like they like you said, they have an identity. The players, and maybe it's not fully there and ingrained into the certain players or don't have the right profile of players there yet, but like they have an identity that obviously isn't working right now, but I think with time will end up working for Chelsea.
I liked the Poch hire when they hired him, but I was actually reading an article yesterday about Poch, and like maybe we have the narrative on Poch completely wrong. He had the best Tottenham team of all time. Harry Kane in his absolute prime. Son scoring at a ridiculous rate. Dele Alli, talk about lightning in a bottle. I mean, the defensive Vertonghen and Alderweireld. Kyle, like, he had the best team Tottenham ever had, and he won nothing. Maybe the story... No. I agree that is probably not what I'm saying. I don't necessarily agree with what I'm saying, but I was just reading this and I was like, that's a fair point.
No, it's a fair.
If that was any other club other than Tottenham and you had that set of players and a manager won nothing, you would probably be like, that was a failure.
But yes, and I agree. And then you obviously compile that with what happened at PSG and that team.
Right.
But
that's what I'm saying.
No, I know. But my question is it's kind of like chicken and an egg situation. Like, is he the reason that those players became as good as they were?
Is he a Graham Potter where it's like he can take this kind of group of younger players who are not misfit, but not necessarily established, and some of them still figuring out their roles, and create them into a team that can play some fun football and can win some big matches, but also isn't a title-winning team? And then the question is that good enough to be the manager of Chelsea when you're spending $1 billion a year?
I mean, Kane was always the guy that he was, but you look at like Kyle Walker and Danny Rose, who ended up being one of the best wingback duos during that time. Like, they were just like extremely raw, athletic. Like, Kyle Walker was not Kyle Walker, and like he always had the intangibles. He's just an athlete, but he didn't become as good of a player until Poch got there, and then obviously took the next step with Pep. And the same thing with Son when he came in. And obviously Dele Alli, he played a big part in making him who he was. So I just think it was a little bit of chicken and the egg, and maybe he wasn't cut out for.
Yeah, I mean, it's not as black and white as
who's gone to PSG and
bad.
Succeeded, though.
For sure. Yeah, no, I don't think it's as black and white, and I just think like it's interesting. We all have this narrative that Poch was a great manager at Tottenham. I just like to see someone write that ulterior narrative. It's a good mind teaser. It's like, as you said, what comes first? Like, Poch created this team into what it became, or any manager could have done that, and he should have had more.
Right.
I think it's probably a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B.
No, it's probably
like if that Tottenham team had won a singular FA Cup or a League Cup, then I don't think we're having this discussion. But the fact that they didn't win anything.
That's what I hate.
And the year that they were best in the Premier League, Leicester City won.
Right.
So they probably, that also doesn't help his case.
Correct, definitely on that. But the point before is just something that I hate so much. Like, I consider the fact that Poch took us to a Champions League final a significantly more bigger accomplishment than winning an FA Cup or a Carabao Cup. Like, I don't think it's even close. Like, I think there's just a troll trophy narrative. But if you're a real fan, like, that Champions League run, and we've never won anything, like, so I don't know, but I can't imagine that winning an FA Cup would bring me the amount of joy that Champions League run did.
Yeah, I mean, we can sit here and talk trophies all day. I think also it depends on where you are as a fan. Like we were talking about it the other day. Like,
but I should be at a place to where I am yearning for that trophy. But I actually think that getting there was a bigger accomplishment to me than would have winning the FA Cup with that team.
Yeah, I mean, I think it also, it just changes the narrative of the club, who you're able to bring in. Like, there's more to winning a trophy than just like, oh, we won the FA Cup. Right. I actually think the League Cup is meaningless. Right. I will say that. I think the League Cup is completely meaningless. You basically don't play any real teams until you play a 2-leg semifinal out of nowhere. Like, it's a bizarre
thing. It's fairly early in the season.
Yeah, I think the League Cup is meaningless. I think the FA Cup is super important because it's been around for so long. It means a lot. And also, like, it's just a brilliant concept where you have basically amateur footballers playing against, like, Arsenal 2 back-to-back years went away in the 4th round to non-league sides. Yeah. Like, that must have just been the most incredible thing for that team and their fans to have Arsenal show up and play. Yeah.
I don't want to diminish the FA Cup because as Americans we get
I get your point.
We get enough hate for certain things.
Like this year, I think obviously we're already out of the FA Cup, but I think it would mean more to me this year to make a Champions League final run than to have won the FA Cup. Arteta's already won the FA Cup. Yeah. Like, and that's also not getting any monkeys off his back if he's already won an FA Cup.
Yeah, just so the narratives and Twitter trolls stop, we probably won a trophy. But for me personally, I think
there is an element to it that's like you'd love to not be trolled for a month.
All right, but the last thing we'll touch on in the coaching carousel is obviously Xavi. We've touched on it. Your top contender or top 3 contenders that you have for that job?
It's so tough with Barcelona because they're not going to hire a Thomas Frank. Like, that's not realistic. And I don't think Xabi Alonso's not an option. I really don't think Klopp is an option.
I don't think Klopp's an option. The only way he takes a club job, I think, is in Germany.
I agree.
Yeah.
So,
but I actually, before you get there, I kind of disagree. Barcelona, they're on their way of getting out of debt. The new stadium, the young players, like, they're in a bit of a rebuild. Bringing in a big name. Probably makes more sense.
I think this squad is perfect for Klopp. He could run a bunch of 16 to 18-year-olds into the ground.
I think bringing in a non-big name probably makes more sense for a Barcelona than it does a Liverpool.
I agree, but I just don't think that's how Barcelona operates.
Yeah. I'm not deep in the weeds of their financial situation,
it's
but
not good.
Can they afford to bring in and pay a big manager?
Maybe Ruben Amorim is the answer.
Yeah. So who did you have as the top candidate?
I mean, I just kind of had the candidates who are out there, but I don't really believe any of them are right. Just what came to my head actually right now is not someone I had written down, and I'll whisper it, Unai Emery.
Yeah.
Kind of makes sense.
A little bit.
He's probably achieved everything he can achieve at Aston Villa, which is which is an annoying thing to say, but it's probably pretty true.
Real. It's real.
Eddie Howe? I don't know.
So I put the
somebody who's a big enough name that Barcelona fans will be happy with it, but not someone who they can't afford. Mourinho's not going to go coach there. Yeah. They can't afford him.
So we're not deep in La Liga, but Mikel, I think is how you pronounce. He's the Girona manager.
Yeah.
I obviously
just because they're top of the
table. I don't know much about
them.
Yeah. And the only reason I know more, it would be similar to the only reason I know about Xabi Alonso is because he played and I watched the Bundesliga more and pay more attention to it.
No, for sure.
But if Xabi Alonso had
he was also one of the greatest footballers of the last 20 years.
That's what I'm saying. But if Xabi Alonso had the name Michel, I wouldn't know who it was, but I would think he's a good candidate because he's overtaking the likes of Bayern and Dortmund the same way he's overtaking the likes of Barcelona and Real Madrid and Atletico Madrid. So he's 36 years old. I think he could be the perfect manager, and this is prefacing him being the potential perfect manager while knowing nothing about them. I've never watched a Girona game, but I can imagine, I know that they play extremely attacking, expansive football. I know that. And to grow as a 36-year-old manager, to grow with a team and with young players and evolve his play style around the young players that they have, Lamine Yamal and all the center midfielders they have, I think could be a really cool project. I just don't know enough about him to stamp that.
It makes sense logically. I think the last time Barcelona, before Xavi, when they went through a bunch of different managers, a 4-year period, that was kind of what they were doing. They were kind of plucking the best La Liga managers. I think that's a totally fair take. I don't know. I just feel like Xavi's leaving because of all this pressure. Barca have this great young crop of players, and they're also in tons of debt. They kind of need to start winning.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're going to find a long-term replacement right now. Maybe in 2 or 3 years, Sergio Busquets or Piqué, or we're just in this.
That would be cool.
We're in this world now where it feels like it's club legend after club legend taking over clubs.
Is that how? I don't know.
Well, Pep coached Barca. He was a Barca player. I think that has been happening for a while, and
we just don't know the players as well. So
in the early 2000s, I didn't know X player played for X club, in the 70s. Yeah. But now that we are in our mid-20s, we've seen these players play for those clubs.
What are your thoughts on Xavi's comments? Because I have a few.
I think he's acting a bit like a little bitch.
Me too. You played for them. You know the pressure that comes with playing at Barcelona, and it's you definitely know what you signed up for. And I appreciate him being honest, but it's too much. But say it's too much pressure for me, not the outside puts too much pressure on Barca. Because there's a million managers who would relish the opportunity to take on the amount of pressure that the Barca job warrants. And it's you're saying ease up on me. No one's easing up on anyone. It's the
exact opposite of Mourinho, right? Mourinho would be fuck everyone.
Yeah.
Fuck you. Yeah. I do how I want to do. You don't like me anymore, I leave. That's how
it was. I don't know.
Pep's the same way.
Where can he go next? Because
Xavi?
Yeah.
He's probably, my guess is he probably goes to Saudi and takes a
no
job, gets paid a bunch of money.
Yeah.
And then maybe the Spain job eventually opens up.
Yeah. I just hated the way he went about it. You hit it on the head. He was acting like a spoiled bitch.
But Klopp does that kind of shit too.
He does.
Klopp gets away with it because he's a big angry German. But
correct, and he's won more, so he can do that.
But he was doing that at Dortmund.
He also talks about the structure. I feel like the structure of the Premier League and all the matches more, and that's more understandable than saying there's just so much pressure and I can't handle.
And he always complimented the fans. He's never
say
ever said
I can't handle it personally. I knew what came with it, and I see that I can't handle it now, rather than blaming the outside people. If he was that ignorant to come in not knowing what was going to come with it, then that's his fault as well. I think there was a lot of...
That's probably why he failed.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of finger pointing at other people when there should have been some soul searching himself.
And we're in agreement here that he's leaving, but it's like you're fired, you're a club legend, we're not going to expose you type of thing. Yes?
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Okay. I think he's getting fired. And yeah, they just want to save face. But the funniest part, as we're having this discussion, is I think they gave him an opportunity to save face, and then he kind of
shat on everything. Yeah.
So
disaster.
Yeah.
I mean, and that is one of the main reasons. Other than the fact that CVG's not a good coach, I think that's one of the main reasons Liverpool would never hire a Gerrard, and I think Chelsea made a huge mistake hiring Lampard.
Yeah.
Like,
do you think
Arteta's not a club legend? Like, he's not going to ruin his fucking image in Arsenal fans' eyes. Like, he was fine for us.
Do you think Chelsea fans struggle to separate Lampard, the legendary player, and the non-legendary coach?
I think they did while he was a manager. Mm-hmm. I think now it is what it is. There's been enough other turmoil that it clearly wasn't just his fault. But like, Manchester United are never going to bring Rooney in as the head coach. Like, that's just a mistake. You're asking
other
for
than
failure.
The fact that Rooney is an
awful coach. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is funny how most of the better players have not been the better coaches, which I think honestly makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I mean, other than Xabi Alonso.
Right.
But like, I mean, Arteta was great, but he was not Stevie G.
Pep was pretty good.
Pep was very, very, very good.
Yeah.
Pep was very good.
Yeah.
And he would have loved himself as a player. All right.
Yeah.
So that's the manager carousel. Let us know where you think Klopp's going. Let us know what you think Liverpool's going to do, Barca's going to do, Xavi. There's a lot to talk about. And more supremely, make sure we got our 11s right. And if we missed anyone like who's a legend under Klopp, we're sorry, but let us know who.
Yeah. I don't think we missed anyone. But
I don't think
they'll be sure to let us know.
I would love to like play a FIFA game, like loading those two rosters.
That would be great.
That would be good content.
And lastly, hit the subscribe button,
of course,
and the like button if you've enjoyed. And we will see you next time.